Hello everybody and welcome back to another bonus edition of KerVAM. It's probably episode 32, I don't even know, but we'll call it bonus KerVAM because this wasn't a planned podcast. After we got a little bit scuppered last week when we posted a podcast, literally the same day they announced a new Blu-Ray box set because they just want to be a bit difficult. It's just the way these things work out, but we did kind of meant to say it at the time. We joked about it when we were discussing season 9, didn't we, that they might just go and announce it before we've even released this podcast, and that was the case. But we are here today to talk about what we do know about the season 9 Blu-ray. We know it's coming out on the 20th of March, and they've announced several special features which we're going to have a little chat through of today and what we're most looking forward to. So I'm joined today by Bill and Ryan. Ryan, as I say, it was a little bit annoying to have it announced right after we did our podcast, but still, it's still good news, still exciting news, I think, isn't it, to have another Blu-ray box set announced and not that far away.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that it's coming pretty soon, just after my birthday, will make it a nice little late birthday treat. So at least there's that. So I'm definitely happy that we're getting another John Pertwee set after what felt like ages at this point, since season 8.
Yeah, well, yeah. So it's been two years since season 8, and then I think it was another 2 years before that to season 10. I mean, Peter Davison's probably the one being the most hard done by, given his last season was released in 2018, which is absolute madness, because I just haven't done 20 and 21 yet. But Bill, are you excited to see season 9? I know we chatted a little bit about it last week, but you're still feeling kind of, fairly optimistic about it all?
Yeah, very much so. Anytime they announce any collection box set, no matter what season it is, I'm very much excited for it. And this one is no different, essentially. It's not, as I said, I think I said in last week's one, it's perhaps not necessarily the first choice I would have gone with, but at the same time, it's still a very good choice for them to go with. So, yeah, having more John Pertwee on Blu-ray, that's completely fine, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously this marks the halfway point for the collection range as well. This is the 13th release to be announced for the 26 seasons. I know we might get a Wilderness Years and then we might do New Who and all that, but of the normal standard classic Who, we are halfway through, which is quite exciting. I'm kind of anticipating that we'll end up with a delay to the release because it's only in like 6 weeks, and I feel like these ones always end up getting delayed at the last minute. So 20th of March, hopefully, but it might end up being April. But yeah, fingers crossed. And like the fact is, I noted like the last few releases, they haven't been announcing release dates. They just said like coming later this year or coming next year or whatever. But this one, they put a specific date on it, which kind of makes you think maybe they will achieve it this time around. I don't know. But we obviously got an exciting trailer for this box set featuring Katie Manning returning and a baby sea devil, among other things, which I thought was pretty cool. Ryan, did you enjoy that little sort of trailer with the kind of heartfelt tribute to Stuart Bevan there as well?
Yeah, it was definitely very well handled how they did this. And yeah, it was how they honoured that character and Stuart Bevan's important role in that story. I thought it was just really well done, how it was well handled, and also a little bit of I thought it was definitely well handled. It's a little bit of Sarah Jane's legacy, the fact that we now know that the Sonic Clipstick is now belonging to Joe. So, which I thought that was another little nod there. So it was definitely well done, I thought, with this trailer. I think it's up there with the season 26 trailer as the best Blu-ray.
Which one was the season 26 one again? I can't actually remember that one.
I think it was with Ace and
yes, of course.
And I thought that was really well done. And this was, I think that this joins as the best one of these sort of story trailers so far. I thought it was really well done. And also, Baby Yoda, the Baby Sea Devil, it's up there with Baby Yoda's one of the most adorable things ever. Let's be honest.
Yeah, and I saw some people saying it's the best Sea Devil story since 1972, which I also thought was quite funny as well, given their track record since then. But yeah, and Bill, did it give you the same feelings of, sort of it's a bit of nostalgia in there, and as I said, a poignant moment for remembering Stuart Bevan, who of course had passed away since the season 8 Blu-ray, which he featured on the trailer of as well.
Yeah, like you say, very poignant with them paying tribute to him, and yeah, just such a nice moment, kind of Joe reminiscing about the stuff they did together and everything. I just felt overall the trailer, all these collection Blu-ray trailers are always very good anyway, but I feel like this one especially has got to be up there as one of the best because it was just very well put together and lovely, really. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I think these things really complement the sets, and it just makes it more an event. I think almost rather than just a press release, and maybe a trailer for like the season or something, but to have a like actual tailored story sort of within this, and then kind of slotting in the middle of it the sort of here's all the new special features and stuff for the box set, and then ending with a little bit as well. I think that sort of format just works brilliantly and creates a proper feature out of it, so that's really exciting. And well, we got several new features announced on this Blu-ray box set. Part of me wondered whether it sounded like there wasn't that much on there. I don't know. Like there's 4 main new documentaries. Is the key thing to mention, which is a big making of documentary for the Time Monster. I know I said in the last podcast that there was making ofs for all of them, and I think there is a sort of making of for the Time Monster, but I think it's kind of focused quite heavily on like mythology or something rather than really on the making of the story itself. So we obviously saw in the trailer that Toby Haydock and John Levine, among others, are going to the location of the house where the Time Monster was set, which looks really cool. So that was one of the features. There's a profile of director Michael E. Bryant. I think Michael E. Bryant's a great guy. He also directed The Sea Devils. I don't know. I can't remember all the stories he directed. I know he did Robots of Death. And I think he did about 7 stories across the Pertwee era and Tom Baker's era as well. And I always just think he's a fascinating guy whenever I hear him on the Blu-ray. So that's or on the DVDs and things. So that's another feature on there. I think as we discussed, the location feature is on there. Revisiting all the locations of season 9. It seemed like an obvious feature, and that's the one we mentioned last week. And then the very left field one, fairly left field, is the documentary about Stuart Fell, the stuntman, which I think is an opportunity to explore one of those sort of lesser known faces. I guess we kind of all the stunt people, we kind of know most of Stuart Fell, but it's still nice to see a proper sort of documentary focused on him, which I think is quite exciting. So, Bill, of those sort of 4 main, they're the main new documentaries coming to this box set. Which one would you say kind of excites you the most to have to probably? Which one are you going to dive into first when you get the box set?
I think they're all quite kind of equal in terms of how much I'm looking forward to them. But I would say if you had to like push me on that, I would say perhaps the ones about Michael E. Bryant and Stuart Fell, because it's kind of what you were saying of how it's nice to kind of just find out a bit more about some of these people who worked on the show, but are not always like that much talked about, like when it comes to these documentaries and everything. Like we get loads of like, we have the conversations with all doctors and companions and everything, but very rarely do we have stuff to do with work with people working behind the scenes on the show. And Stuart Fell especially, I think that's going to be very interesting. And then Michael E. Bryant, I think like in the clip they showed, like he was talking about the transition from William Hartnell to Patrick Troughton, and like his recollections of that and everything. So that should be really interesting as well. And yeah, but I think all of them are very like sound all really interesting. And I would say it is difficult to pick like which ones I kind of am more excited about, because they all sound so good and so very interesting, and I'm sure we'll find out quite a bit from them.
Absolutely. I think as you flagged, that Michael E. Bryant sort of documentary sounds quite interesting. I had a little look because I felt I should give you guys the proper facts. He was a production assistant across Dalek Master Plan, Power of the Daleks, and Fury from the Deep. So that's where, Bill, as you said, that discussion about going from William Hartnell to Patrick Troughton. But then he got into the directing world with Colony in Space, not the greatest star in the world, but then did the Sea Devils and the Green Death, which I think is pretty big. Death to the Daleks, Revenge of the Cybermen, and Robots of Death. So some pretty major stories there, I feel like. But Ryan, if there was one documentary you would want to watch tomorrow, which one would it be?
Bizarrely enough, the Time Monster documentary, because even though I'm not a huge fan of that story, I mean, I said my full thoughts on the last story, I thought it was very bizarre. But the documentary's got me weirdly fascinated to know what the idea was behind the story and what people thought of it. Yeah. and just what the experience was filming it. So it would definitely be great to have a more in-depth perspective about a story that's sort of almost regarded as the worst John Pertwee story. So
Yeah.
it'd be definitely interesting.
Yeah, and I think, as we've said many times in this podcast before, it's often some of the worst or some of the most difficult to make stories that often make the most interesting making of documentaries. It's almost like sometimes if a production's been so smooth and the story's just quite good that there's almost nothing to say about it. But I feel like with the Time Monster, there's certainly going to be a lot to say about it. I mean, I thought it was interesting in that trailer that speaking to that chap who like broke his leg or something in the middle of filming, and that was it. That was then the end of his work on the Time Monster or something. I thought that was quite an interesting little moment. I'm intrigued to see. I think it's always fun when they pull out these sort of new people to be interviewed about these stories that were maybe had a smaller role or a different role within the show that just wasn't covered in the original DVD range, but to hear from somebody different who had a different role within Doctor, I think is always really interesting. And as you say, the Stuart Fell documentary I think will provide that as well. That sort of what is the stuntman side of Doctor Who? What's the take of a stuntman? I know we've done a little bit of stuntmen stuff in the past. I know there was that. I remember that famous. I don't know if you guys have seen on the Inferno special edition, Haydock versus Havoc, where they got the Havoc guys back together, the stunt team, and got Toby Haydock to like jump off some massive high tower onto a load of sort of trampoline and sort of padding and stuff, which was just a really fun documentary where you met them all in these different locations and brought them all back together. It was one of Chris Chapman's, I think, first big documentaries he did, and just sort of set his style out. So we've seen a little bit of stuntmen in the past, but I feel like a proper look at Stuart Fell is going to be really, really fun as well. And then the locations feature, Ryan, I think, you said there'd be lots of opportunity for locations. Do you think that, I can't remember, I did watch the trailer like 5 days ago. Did we see much of who's in the location documentary? Because I know Katie Manning's in it, but did we actually see like if any of the directors or like John Levine's going to turn up or anybody like that? I don't remember seeing anybody apart from Katie Manning in that, in the sort of little clips of that feature, and just some drone shots.
Yeah, what I saw, it did look like it was just Katie Manning, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did bring some of the other directors from that season, so like Michael O'Brien, and maybe John Levine could pop up a bit, because I know that when they did that one for season 8, and I think they did one where it had all the directors of season, I believe it was season 8, where it had all the directors.
Yes, they had they got Graham Harper in, didn't they? Who was like the production assistant or something like that at the time, and they had Timothy Coombs, who directed one, the Mind of Evil. And maybe they had Michael E. Bryant. I can't remember. Possibly he was there as well for that one. I think he was for Colony in Space.
Yeah, and I think they if they were doing another location documentary, I think they probably would have him on. I mean,
yeah.
If they don't, I think that would be a missed opportunity if they don't. But if it's just Katie Manning, it wouldn't be the biggest loss, because I think Katie Manning is brilliant in pretty much everything she's done. So, and I think that'll be a good documentary. I think that's probably my second most anticipated is that one, but with the Time Monster being the number one, weirdly enough.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Bill, are you feeling excited to revisit the Time Monster, or is that bottom of your list of things to go back into?
Well, I would say not necessarily excited to revisit it, but yeah. I mean, I tend to just focus on special features with the Blu-rays, and then, if I want to watch the stories on there, I can come back to them at another point. But yeah, even just, it will certainly be very fascinating to find out the making of it, at least, because as you say, it is often the ones which had the most trouble getting made or would have worst received by fans or whatever, that actually make for the most interesting production, like stories and everything.
Yeah, exactly. And so do we feel like it feels like the box set's missing another documentary? I don't know. I just remember first reading it and thinking there's only 4 kind of new documentaries. Are we used to getting more on the previous box sets, or am I just imagining that? I don't know, Ryan, do you have any kind of impression of whether it felt like the normal amount or less or more?
I mean, we'll have to wait and see until the set comes out, but I think the original DVD releases, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they were pretty stacked with documentaries. Maybe if that's the case, then maybe this was the best they could do, since all the other sorts of documentary stories from the others have already been done, and there isn't anything left to tell. So maybe that'll be the case. I mean, but then again, who knows? I mean, we have to wait and see until the set comes out. But I have a pretty good feeling that even if there isn't that many new documentaries, it will still be a hefty collection regardless, because we've still got the tons of features from the DVD range to still keep our attention and delve into how each of these stories were made. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not too fussed about it since we've already had so much documentaries in the past. Of course, it'd be great to have more, but for this case, I think what we have could be the right amount. But as I said, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess compared to, say, season 22 we got last year or season 24 the year before, something that's a lot more important on this box set is the picture restoration and audio restoration, but improving the quality of some of these stories, because all the later ones are pretty much fine generally. There's probably not a lot of money or work that has to go into improving them. Something happens, but not to the same degree that, well, season 2 needed it, and now we've got the same here on season 9. That, you know, I know particularly, I think there's quite a few episodes that had to use, I think, an American like master tape for the original DVD release, which meant generally the picture quality was worse than a lot of the other stories from around this era. So I think the first half of the Sea Devils used to be particularly bad, among other things. So I'll be intrigued to see sort of what, you know, picture-wise, what improvements they've made to these stories, because I think there's a lot more scope for improvement. And, you know, the Sea Devils, as an example, was released in 2007, I'm pretty sure. So, you know, we've had 16 years of technology moving on since then, and the opportunity to improve things more. So, I don't know, Bill, do you look at that as something else, as, you know, something else to kind of get excited about? Not that we may watch all these stories straight away, but kind of knowing we're getting hopefully a higher quality version of these stories is still a big thing, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, because as you say, some of the John Pertwee stories, the surviving tapes of which we have only exist originally in like black and white. And I think season 9 is pretty much fine mostly, but I think certainly at least season 7 and 8 are quite badly affected by that. So I suppose, yeah, and also just because they're just older than, you know, like season 22, for example, is you know, with it being back in 1972. So I suppose that probably is, as you say, an explanation as to why it may feel like we've not got as many new documentaries as like some of the past few releases have done, is because they've decided to spend that money on just making sure that these episodes, even if they are all completely fine and in color and everything, just look just a little bit sharp and a little bit better quality than they originally did.
Absolutely, and I thought what was notable on in the various other new things that are included on this, on the Sea Devils, they've got not just a 5.1 surround audio, but as a sound person here, I'm quite excited that they've got Dolby Atmos sound for the first time on a classic Who story, which is quite a big deal. Like, you know, obviously 5.1 is really cool and, you know, is a great piece of technology, but Dolby Atmos is this big new thing about having a sort of 3D sound sphere that you can put sounds in, where it's not just going between 5 different speakers. It's sort of, you know, there's so much more range to be able to place it into. Of course, it depends on your home setup, and I'm not convinced many people are going to have a Dolby Atmos setup in their living room. But, you know, if you take it, why have you got one then?
Well, sort of. I've a sound bar and
Okay.
and a sort of like sort of a speaker set at the back of connected to it as well. So I believe it can handle Dolby Atmos fairly well. I don't think it's the super greatest setup in the world, but it's serviceable enough, and it does provide a good enough sound, and hopefully, if the remastering of the Sea Devils, if it's well done, I'm really curious how it's going to look, especially on my 4K TV. Hopefully, I'll be able to notice the difference. I mean, I noticed when we did season 2, I noticed that with the Crusade, they definitely did a much better job with that than the original DVD releases, because the original DVDs they did just looked very almost fuzzy, almost a bit pixelated at times. So I'm hoping that we'll see a similar job with like some of these stories like the Sea Devils, and hopefully if it turns out great, hopefully this will be a good sign that they'll do a bang up job with season 7, because of all the Pertwee sets, that is the one that needs the most attention, and to some extent, Invasion of the Dinosaurs Part 1.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Though, as great as season 7 is, unfortunately, I think we're going to have to wait 3 or 4 years more for it. Because I think, well, given it looks like, they're releasing Pertwee every 2 years at the moment, and I think that season 7 is going to be the last one. I think they'll do season 11 next to the Pertwee, so it's probably going to be 4 years. But when they get to it, it will be great, and maybe with even more time, they'll be able to do even better restoration to it, and it'll be even more exciting from that point of view as well. But of course, we have on this set, as we do with all of them, the behind the sofa features. We're back on this box set to having it on all the stories rather than just some of them, because we've only got 5 stories rather than 9 or 10, whatever it was in season 2, which was clearly just a little bit too much for them to be forced to sit through for a day. Which must be pretty tiresome at times. As I think we all called it, we've got Peter Davison, Sarah Sutton and Janet Fielding on one of the sofas. We've got Katie Manning and Michael Ian Bryant on another. And then we've got Wendy Padbury and Sophie Aldred on the last sofa. So, Bill, do they sound... I know we're very, very used to Peter Davison, Janet Fielding and Sarah Sutton. But apart from that, do they generally sound like kind of combinations you look forward to watching?
Yeah, pretty much. I feel like Wendy Padbury and Sophie Aldred is maybe kind of an interesting kind of like pair, because that's not necessarily like, I'm not sure if I would have necessarily paired, if I would have thought like first person to pair Wendy Padbury up would be Sophie Aldred, sort of thing. Not that there's anything wrong with pairing them up, just it's kind of something which I wasn't quite expecting. But I think it will be interesting, because it will be interesting to see how like Wendy reacts to some Pertwee stories with her being from the Troughton era and everything. And then it'll be very interesting to see what Katie Manning and Michael E. Bryant remember of some of these stories as well. And then Peter Davison and Janet Fielding and Sarah Sutton, I'm sure, will be doing their usual stuff, which will be very funny.
Yes, I don't know if you guys spotted it in the trailer with Janet Fielding having a blanket with pictures of her face on, which was rather intriguing. Ryan, are you excited for yet another box set full of Janet Fielding and Sarah Sutton?
I mean, it's definitely interesting. I mean, we've gotten so used to them by now already. I mean, they're always a good likely pair, and of course, I mean, I think the Janet Fielding has been getting definitely going to be getting a bit of a popularity boost thanks to her appearance in Power of the Doctor, which let's be honest, she was amazing in. So it'd be interesting to see how she's going to react to some more Pertwee stories. I mean, I'm pretty sure it'd be entertaining nonetheless, and it'd definitely interesting to see how Peter Davison's going to react to these, especially see what he's going to be making of the Sea Devils, especially since he encountered them in the legendary Warriors of the Deep.
Well, indeed, yes. I wonder if he'll reminisce fondly about that fantastic story that I'm sure he must love so much. Yeah, I think it'll be a fun moment when we get onto the Sea Devils. I'm looking forward to seeing what he has to say about that. But covering off the last few little features we've got there, we've got movie-length editions of Day of the Daleks and the Sea Devils. They're kind of like omnibus versions, because I believe they, back in the 1970s, around the time they re-aired these 2 stories at a different time during the year, and I think they've like gone to ridiculous levels of dedication, because the master tapes don't exist. I don't think there was much record of the edits of them, but somehow some like off-air audio recordings of these stories when they were re-shown exist, and so they basically use that audio to work out what stuff is cut where and then put it all back together. So I thought that was quite a lot of dedication to something that I'm personally not that interested in. Is that bad to say? I don't know. Bill, do you... I know we've had it a few times on box sets. Do you ever tend to actually watch the like omnibus versions of Doctor Who stories when they do cut downs and whatever? Do you ever actually watch those versions?
Very rarely, I think. I mean, it's something which, like, it's a nice, I suppose, added fun little bonus, as it were. And it's nice to kind of just have it, because I think people were discussing it, like, when season 9 was still being rumored. Oh, are they going to do this sort of thing? And so it's nice that they've done it. But yeah, it's not something that like I'm really fussed about. But if I ever wanted to, I could watch them, and yeah, that's fine by me.
Yeah, exactly. I guess to an extent, maybe there's sort of people who were unlike us, around at the time and saw them back then and maybe have a great nostalgia for those sort of, edits of the stories because they simply watched them at the time. And so that's sort of, it's, as you say, I think it's a nice thing to have, but doesn't necessarily add, it's not something I'm going to rush to watch on this box set. I think it's fair to say. And then the last, they've got all the generic new stuff, new photo galleries, audio archives, info text, all that kind of stuff. There's some convention footage here in there as well. I know we kind of get these on one a box set, I think. Ryan, do you tend to watch these sort of old random convention footage? They always seem to chuck one on a box set. But have you? I've watched a few. I do sometimes watch them. But have you rushed to any of those?
Not really, to be honest. So I think the only time I did check out was I think it was for season 20. No, sorry, it's season 18.
Mm-hmm.
It was because I think by the time they were, or one of the latest, when they had some convention footage from during the 50th anniversary celebration in
Yes.
Excel, and I was at that convention, and I did attend some of these panels, and I'm interested to know if they recorded anything else from that convention and if it's going to end up on future Classic Who sets, because I know they did some panel interviews with like some of the Doctor stars. I mean, I remember I was at one that had Katie Manning, Louise Jameson, and Sophie Aldred, and I'm wondering if that's going to be on in a future set. If that's the case, then I would definitely happily watch that. So, and I mean, I rarely watch sort of this stuff, but if it was something like that, I mean, I would definitely watch it because again, it would take me back to that point in time that I was at that convention, and I mean, it'd be nice to see, but it's not really something I particularly watch most of the time.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's fair to say that it's not something we necessarily rush to, but again, it's still nice to have, and I think it's still fair to say that we as Doctor Who fans, like, these releases are better than you're going to get for anything else going. Like, there's no other show that gets, or show or franchise or whatever, that gets the amount of extra sort of treatment and features and archive stuff and whatever put together onto great box sets like this. I think we always have to be very lucky and appreciative of it because we're getting treated really, really well. But Bill, would you overall say that the trailer and the announcement got you more? Obviously, we kind of knew it was coming. Did this all get you more excited for season 9 coming, or kind of the same level of looking forward to it?
Maybe a bit more excited for it. Yeah, I think it was kind of because I think it had been leaked like at least a week or two beforehand. So I think I'd kind of got to that point where I kind of was just basically waiting for the trailer to just come out to be like, well, we already know it's coming. But yeah, it was still really nicely well done, as it always is with these announcements. And yeah, they know exactly what they're doing with like the trailers and the special features and everything. And yeah, I just glad to have another collection box set. Really, like I say, it wouldn't have been my first choice, but that is by no means a bad thing. It's just a season which I think just flew out of my radar, essentially. I just didn't think of it at the time, like, them doing more Pertwee, but I'm glad that they are.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Pertwee's probably my favourite classic Doctor, so from that side, I'm certainly very happy to see another Pertwee box set released, even if it's a season that I probably would say is the weakest of his lot. It's still, great to have another one of them.
So, hi everyone. I am very sorry I couldn't make it to this episode of KerVAM's recording, but I've managed to find some time to tell you my thoughts on it separately. So yeah, season 9 collection box set, we were all kind of expecting it really, weren't we? It was kind of a given, since everything gets leaked on that Swiss website nowadays. But yeah, it's great to have another collection in the pipeline. Hopefully we have 3 this year, fingers crossed. I know last year we only had 2 because of the war in Ukraine. We had season 22 and then season 2 much later on in December. But yeah, it seems that we're going to be getting this around March time, maybe if there's delays then possibly April, but it seems we'll be getting it in the first third of this year definitely. So it's great to have season 9. As for the season itself, I know we discussed it in the last episode, but yeah, as far as the Pertwee era goes, it's not amazing, but that's still saying a lot given it's the Pertwee era. Like, just being the Pertwee era's worst season, in my opinion, doesn't really make it bad at all. I think, Day of the Daleks, Curse of Peladon, Sea Devils, 3 absolute bangers. Then we have the Mutants, then we have the Time Monster. The Mutants is just plain bad, it's pretty boring, overlong, 6 episodes, just not needed. The Time Monster is hilarious, goofy fun. I know I compared it to the creature from the pit of the Pertwee era, which it kind of is, but nowhere near as bad. It still can be a fun time, you know. But yeah, season 9, it's a decent season. I'm glad we're getting it. I think it's good in a way that they're saving some of my favourite seasons until last. Like we for the Pertwee era, we have seasons 8, 9, and 10 now, which leaves 7 and 11. And 11 isn't the most loved Pertwee season, but I have a very strong appreciation for it. And obviously season 7. But I think it's good that they're doing some of the less liked ones now, like season 22, we had season 17 relatively recently, and now season 9, so they can maybe, you know, save some of the more loved seasons like 5, 7, 13, 25 until a lot later on, when, you know, so it's not like they're just scraping the bottom of the barrel at the end. But yeah, season 9, very happy that we're getting it. So I'm just going to talk about the special features quickly. So we've got location, kind of a given, really. Given we have all of the the Navy base and stuff from the Sea Devils. We've got some stuff in the Time Monster as well. Mutants not so much. Day of the Daleks perhaps, maybe a little bit. Yeah, we've got some, yeah, we do have a lot of locations, mostly in the Sea Devils. I think, you know, it was kind of obvious we were going to get something related to the Sea Devils, given how iconic it is, and obviously, it's a very beloved story. About a year ago, we were talking about it in the lead up to Legend of the Sea Devils. It's pretty great. I think it'll be nice to see all of those locations, really. What else do we have? We have the Fell guy, sort of, you know, documentary on Stuntman Stuart Fell, which I think, I don't really know much about him. I'm sure I will by the end of the documentary, but I think it's going to be quite interesting for me, because I quite like the action side of this era of Doctor Who, like the Pertwee era. We had obviously Havoc doing all of the stunts and stuff. I think it's going to be cool to see, you know, to learn more about that. I'm sure it'll be fascinating. We have 5 more behind the sofa episodes, obviously for some. For season 2, we didn't have a behind the sofa for every story because there's 9 of them, and you know, I don't think they're going to really convince all these people to sit down and watch however many episodes of Doctor Who, like 40, but they can kind of do it when there's only like 26 episodes of Doctor Who. Yeah, I'm sure that'll be good too. I mean, thing is with behind the sofa, I like it and I think it's a good idea, but they're just kind of doing it out of habit now. Like, I don't know, I feel like we discuss when we talk about these box sets, if you see like 2 or 3, even 1 behind the sofa, you've kind of seen them all in a sense. Like, they're fun to stick on in the background though, maybe, you know. Obviously we're getting the usual surround sound, which will be great because I've got some nice new headphones that I can listen to that on. What else do we have? We have Michael E. Bryant at the helm, a profile of director Michael E. Bryant. Cool. Don't really know much about him again, but I'm sure that'll be as interesting. And we have a making of the Time Monster documentary, which, okay, the Time Monster is an interesting one to go for. I'm not too sure if it had a DVD making of. I'm assuming it didn't, because if they all already had DVD making ofs, or there were several that didn't and they could choose one, the Time Monster's a weird one to go for, but I guess if they have enough stuff to say to fill however long, like 45 minutes, an hour, then go for it, you know. As long as it's interesting, I'm sure it will be. You know, these guys know how to make good documentaries. And we just have the standard stuff, you know, the trailer, because why not? HD photo, yeah, all of that stuff, info text, yeah. We have movie-length editions of Day of the Daleks and Sea Devils as well. I don't really care for these like movie-length edition things. I know we've had an omnibus of the Demons before, the Demons. I don't really think movie-length editions work of classic Doctor Who, because at the end of the day they're not films, even if they can be watched as, well, what, 4-parters are like an hour and 40, which is a fairly short film, and then you've got 6-parters, which are 2 hours 30, which is the length of your standard film nowadays, really. but they don't really, they're not designed to be watched as films because originally they weren't intended to be binged really. They were, intended to be 25-minute things that you watch once a week. So I think you can binge them, sure, and you can get a lot of enjoyment out of them, but I don't really care for movie-length editions. I just think it's just, you don't really know when to stop it, even if you do know when the cliffhangers are still. I don't know, it doesn't really sit right with me. I know it's a bit of a nitpick, but yeah, whatever. Anyway, yeah, that's pretty much everything in Season 9 discussed. My favourite, my most anticipated piece of special features is probably the Fell guy. I think that's going to be really interesting, especially since I'm very interested in the stunts and action side of this era of Doctor Who especially. I think it's really fascinating. I'm sure they're going to do something about it for Season 7 as well, given how prolific that stuff was in Season 7. Yeah, I'm actually watching through the Pertwee era now. I'm on the Ambassadors of Death. Absolutely fantastic. I know, Elliot, you said the Ambassadors of Death was your favourite, and the Mutants was your worst. So there we go. Anyway, yeah, thanks for listening to my section of this podcast, everyone. I'll be on the next podcast, hopefully. I'm not sure what we'll be talking about, but I'm sure it'll be good. Bye, everyone.
Ryan, would you say that you're also feeling, excited and looking forward to the box set to come?
Yeah, I mean, Pertwee is definitely my top 5 favourite Doctors ever. I mean, if I was to sort of briefly rank the Doctors, the top 3, Capaldi and Tom Baker are like my joint number 1, but definitive. Then Troughton a close second, and then Pertwee third, fittingly enough. And he's just one of my personal favourite Doctors ever. And so yeah, more Pertwee, or basically anything from the first 4 Doctors on Blu-ray is always going to be a bonus for me. So I'm happy we get another Pertwee season. Yes, it's not one of his best seasons like Season 7, 8, and 10. It's not on that level, but out of the 3 stories, 3 out of 5, out of the 5 stories, 3 out of 5 ain't bad. The first 3 stories are pretty solid. Yes, the last 2, not very good. Still some more. It's mostly a solid season, so I definitely can't complain with that. And so yeah, I'm definitely excited for it, especially if it's going to be coming hopefully soon, very soon, just after my birthday. Fingers crossed they keep the release date.
Absolutely, yes. So the 20th of March is what they're promising us. I'll believe it when I see it. I think when it's in my hands on the 20th of March, I will believe that was the release date. But until then, given their track record, I'm not so sure. And we've just got a couple of minutes left, so I just wanted to also mention, because Ryan, you mentioned that you'd heard rumours of the next Blu-ray box that's coming up. Obviously, this is nothing official and could change. But what have you heard that are likely to be the rest of box sets for the rest of the year?
I've heard that the next 2 are going to be Season 20, which has been long rumoured for ages now.
I think since about 2019, I think, yeah.
Definitely. Feels like longer than that. And Season 16, the Key to Time season, because I've heard rumours that they're doing recently done a documentary on the Stones of Blood. So it could be that we could be treated to the Key to Time for the next Blu-ray set.
Yeah, I would be very much looking forward to that. I'll be intrigued to see kind of how they approach new features for it, because I feel like that was almost one of the best served seasons of Classic Who. Like, it was all released in one box set at the time and was full of special features at the time. So how they're going to kind of add a load of more extra content to that, I don't know. But Bill, would you say Season 20 or 16 are they ones that you'd be looking forward to for the rest of the year?
I'd say Season 20, that wouldn't surprise me if that is the very next one. Because as you say, that's been the making for so long now. And then Season 16, I think that one's a bit more left field and a bit more unexpected. If that is true, then again, that's another one that I wouldn't really have expected them to go with. But I feel like, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what on earth they do with that, because like, who are they going to have an in conversation with if they do one for that one? Because I think they've already done one for Tom Baker, I assume. They've sadly, Mary Tam's no longer with us. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they're going to do with that.
I guess Could they do?
Sorry.
Because I don't think they ever did an In Conversation with Lalla Ward, did they? On season
Or John
8?
Leeson for K9.
Yeah, or John
Yeah.
Leeson for K9. I guess those are probably the two possibilities. Because I mean, Lalla Ward's at least in one story of this season, and the rest of hers have all been released now. No, yeah, there wasn't one on 17 or 18, so I guess that could be an option.
Yeah, it could be. I think I'm just surprised they didn't go with more anniversary kind of feeling seasons. If these are the ones that they indeed going next,
I guess 20 is, but the other 9 and 16 really aren't anniversary seasons at all.
There's still, I think 16 is still quite noteworthy because it being the key to time and everything, and so it's still a pretty good choice to go with. Yeah, but if there's any truth to them rumors, then that's completely fine. But yeah, not season 16 anyway, not necessarily the first choice I would have made anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess it would just be nice to have 3 releases this year, because of course we only got 2 last year with season 22 and season 2. So it'd be nice to actually get back to sort of what feels like the olden days of the collection range, where we got 3 releases within a year. We just about managed it in 2021 with 8, 24 and 17. But yeah, this year we could be going back to that. So that'll be something to look forward to. But that is just about all we've got time about for this bonus edition of KerVAM. We will be back, well, sooner than the release of this box set for sure, but we will be back to discuss this box set as soon as it's released. We'll be here to just break down all those new special features and give you some in-depth thoughts on those. But we'll be back sooner than that. I don't know quite what about yet, but I'm sure we'll have some interesting content to discuss relating to the future of Doctor Who, DVDs and Blu-rays. Who knows at the moment? But from me, from Bill, from Ryan, it is goodbye for now.